We obviously don't have a crystal ball, so we can't fully try to predict the future outlook for Syracuse football as far as the quarterback situation. But we can go over some of the possible scenarios now that we know Steve Angeli is the starting quarterback for Syracuse football in 2025, or at least for week 1 against Tennessee. Now, both Steve Angeli and Rickie Collins have college eligibility beyond just the 2025 season, which is a great thing to have if you are Syracuse, that Steve Angeli and or Rickie Collins can be your starting quarterback for the next couple of seasons, not just 2025. With Steve Angeli, he has eligibility this season and also the entire 2026 season. And with Rickie Collins, he has 2025, 2026, and even 2027 if he decides to use all those years. So let's go over some of the scenarios here. Number one, Steve Angeli performs well. Steve Angeli is mostly Syracuse's starting quarterback the entire season, and he does a really nice job for the team. If he performs well, I think we can all kind of assume that Steve Angeli would also be Syracuse's starting quarterback in 2026. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Steve Angeli might enter the transfer portal because we honestly don't know. But assuming he plays well, hopefully Syracuse says, you know what, we want to take care of him. We're going to keep him on the roster for another year. And there you go, Syracuse. You have your starting quarterback as well for 2026. And that means Rickie Collins has a choice to make. Does he want to remain Syracuse's backup quarterback in 2026? Because at that point, it's probably not much of a quarterback competition. If Steve Angeli is healthy and starts pretty much every game and is the quarterback and he plays well, there's no reason to believe why they would all of a sudden switch to Rickie Collins. So he could either stay as the backup in 2026 and try to be the starter in 2027, or he can decide to enter the transfer portal. I guess we'll cross that bridge if and when we get there. There's also a scenario where Syracuse has a really good problem, and that's that Steve Angeli performs really, really well and decides, you know what, screw the fact that I have another year of college eligibility. I'm going to go to the NFL. That could happen. Jonte Cook wants to go to the NFL, even though he has multiple years of college eligibility. Why not Steve Angeli? If he goes out and has an all-conference season and performs really well, again, it's a good problem for Syracuse. He decides to go to the National Football League. Where does that leave Rickie Collins? Well, I guess it's really up to the coaching staff to communicate with Rickie Collins how they see his future with the team. Would they just automatically turn to Rickie Collins as the starting quarterback? Maybe. If the competition really was that close and they really do have a lot of faith in Rickie Collins, they could just say, you know what, Steve Angeli's gone in 2026. We're going to roll with Rickie Collins in 2026, his backup quarterback in 2025. They could do that. They could also obviously track the progress of some of the young quarterbacks on Syracuse's roster, the true freshmen that are coming in as well in the 2026 class, and have some sort of internal competition. Or maybe they decide to bring in another transfer. Again, at that point, it's really up to the staff what they want to do with Rickie Collins and the rest of the quarterbacks on the roster and whether or not they believe those guys can legitimately be starting quarterbacks for Syracuse in 2026 and possibly beyond that. That's if the really good problem occurs and Steve Angeli says, I'm going to the NFL after having a really excellent season for Syracuse in 2025. And then there's the bad problem, which I know we don't really want to talk about, but I guess if one extreme can go well, where Steve Angeli is the starting quarterback and he's excellent and goes to the NFL, there's the flip side, which is Steve Angeli does not perform well for Syracuse. Rickie Collins gets his opportunity. He also doesn't perform for Syracuse. In that event, I'd imagine at least one of those quarterbacks is going to transfer, and Syracuse would likely be in the quarterback market once again in the transfer portal for the third straight season. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing to be in the portal pretty much every year for a quarterback, because as we saw last year, you can do quite well at the quarterback position in the transfer portal. But the point being is that likely at least one of them would enter the portal. Who knows what would happen with the young guys? I do think that this is the one scenario where we could see a Jakari Williams, a Luke Carney, or a Rich Bellin on the field in 2025. And that's if both Steve Angeli and Rickie Collins just don't perform well this season.